Thursday night was the perfect game for Matt LaFleur to keep the Green Bay Packers focused. They dominated the Washington Commanders, but there's plenty to work on. We break it down live on the Locked On Packers feed right now.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts, you will find Locked On Packers, the #1 Packers podcast on the internet. And the show for fans who know what happened, they want to know why and how. This episode of Locked On Packers brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. The Green Bay Packers had one of the more dominant sub 10-point wins you will see. This game, if you just look at the final score, is going to say 27-18. It was not anywhere near that close. In fact, the first time since 1995, the Packers have held their first two opponents to under 250 yards. This was a dominant defensive performance. And it really was a dominant offensive performance, 404 total yards, 6.4 yards per play. And that includes some give up, to end the first half, the Packers were averaging over 8 yards a play. They were getting whatever they wanted. And you can call it killer instinct. You can call it a lack of focus. You can call it a young team learning how, if you want to be maximally generous, how to be a championship caliber team. Call it whatever you want. This Packers team did not put the Commanders away when they had the chance. And oh boy, did they have chances. That's the thing. If you're Matt LaFleur, that's why I think this is the perfect coaching opportunity for Matt LaFleur. It is exactly what you want. You showed you are the best team in football, maybe. You just dominated the first time in modern history that a team has won since the short week stuff, has won back-to-back games. So 2 games in 5 days against playoff teams from the previous year. These are big-time wins. And yet, the Packers could have scored 40 points in this game without a problem. And so that, you know what that does? That allows Matt LaFleur to be in his bag all week. To say, hey, you guys played well. You beat that team. You should have annihilated that team. This could have been 40-14. It could have been that kind of game. And I'm not saying, look, the Commanders are a good team, but penalties were a killer. I understand the penalties were weak. A lot of really ticky-tack, real nonsense penalties. The one on John Fitzpatrick where they get the first down and then it totally scuttles a drive. They were going to put that game away, but very first drive, Jordan Love has the chance to get Dontavian Wicks down the seam for a touchdown. The ball is slightly overthrown. Later in that drive on 4th down, this is the kind of detail Matt LaFleur is going to talk about all season. I don't know who it was. It looked like he was yelling at Kingsley Enagbare. I don't know if it was Enagbare, but someone came out on the field thinking field goal. The Packers were going to go for it. Love wanted to go fast. They wanted to take their shot. I think they wanted to run the play they ultimately called, but they wanted to catch the Commanders off guard. And you have someone not paying attention. They come onto the field and the ref holds the game up. And you don't get to keep, you don't get the sneak attack that you wanted, and you don't get to keep the momentum going. Then Jordan Love babies the throw to Matthew Golden, who was going to have his first NFL touchdown if the throw was better. Later in that quarter, Jordan Love misses Matthew Golden on what would have been a 96-yard walk-in touchdown. Now, they end up scoring, but they had multiple opportunities here. Now, look, some of the defensive holding calls were total nonsense. The Nate Hobbs call, soft. There were a number of the Xavier McKinney call, soft. There were a number of those in the game. It did seem like the league had made a phone call and said, hey, can you guys make this a little closer than it would otherwise be? But the Packers allowed that. The defense was stellar. I don't have anything, and we'll talk plenty about the defense, but the defense was outstanding. This game was there for the Packers offense to take by the scruff of its neck. And I understand part of this is the offensive line. Darian Kennard, Anthony Belton, they rotated at right tackle. Jordan Morgan, I think the tape will show an up and down game for him at left guard. This is a pretty good Commanders front. It's not a dominant Commanders front by any means, but they were pretty good in the run game. The Commanders were. The Packers could not run the ball in this game, despite the fact that the Packers tried to pull out some interesting stuff. Now, they were able to get the Savion Williams stuff worked really well. The Matthew Golden stuff worked really well. But none of the Josh Jacobs stuff worked, except the one time he got into the end zone. So the details here were not quite up to the standard. Now, I'm not going to go so far as to say the offense was bad. You can't put up 400 yards of offense in a game and be bad. 27 points, you're not bad. But you want them to keep the throttle down. And there was that drive in the second half where Matt LaFleur comes out. And I know they're backed up in their own end. But, you had just gone up, just kicked the field goal. It is time to just end the game. And you go run, pass. There's nothing there. It's conservative. It was yuck. The Commanders come down and score. Now the Packers, what do? This is what you love. This is what you love. Drive starter, Dontavian Wicks. Play action, and you drive a dot to the sidelines on an out route, first down, drive starter. On 3rd and 6, Jordan Love escapes the pocket, finds Tucker Kraft down the field. You get the trick play. Savion Williams out of the Wildcat. I loved taking speaking of Ferraris that you take out of the driveway. We don't know if he's a Ferrari yet, but he's a sports car. He might be a Miata, but he's a sports car. He gets an explosive out of Wildcat. You get a jet sweep to Matthew Golden. Play action, Tucker Kraft, touchdown. It was like Matt LaFleur said, okay, enough messing around. I'm going to call the real plays now. I'm going to, go down the play sheet, find the good stuff, and they win this game. Part of this is on Matt LaFleur. He has to stay aggressive. And this team has to stay locked in. We talked about the penalties. This was the Lions game was the most buttoned up with penalties. Like, they were as good as they could be. I think they only had 3 penalties in that week 1 game. Well, not in this one. 10 penalties, 77 yards in this one. And all of them seem to either extend drives or scuttle drives. That's a tough way to live. So for the Packers, this is a learning moment. We know how good they are. They know how good they are, but they also know this wasn't good enough. And so I remember having these conversations, 2019, 2020, 2021. The best gift a coach can get is when you have a comfortable win where you didn't play a great game. This was a B game for the Packers. And they beat a NFC championship team from last year by 2 scores in a game that wasn't even as close as 9. That's where you want to be as a team. You show, hey, look, down to down, play to play. We might be the best team. Like the Packers, it's only 2 weeks. But right now, this Packers team might be the best team in football. if you want to do that, you have to do it every single week. It has to be a down-to-down, play-to-play thing. If they can get there. You know who's going to be a big reason why? Our guy, Tucker Kraft. We'll talk about him next on Locked On Packers. Today's Locked On Packers brought to you by our friends at DoorDash. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP. Who delivered? Powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. For the Packers, guys, you know, Tucker Kraft delivered in a big way. 2 touchdowns, the most yards in a game by a tight end since 2015. When the pressure was on, he came through. No hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching week after week, this performance was not a fluke. Tucker Kraft is on a streak. That beautiful touchdown last week. And just like Tucker Kraft delivered for the Packers, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday on your order. Stack it up all season, and you save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through 11/18. Today's episode also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. The Packers, boy, did they cover. Boy, did they cover 3.5 in this one. FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if that bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I made a nice little profit in week 1. Felt good about that. Did not have anything on this game, but if I did, you guys remember I picked the Packers to win by 2 scores. I wanted to go alt line. I wish I would have, because I would have been right. Are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Tucker Kraft was outstanding in this game. 6 catches, 124 yards, the touchdown. And you can't say enough about what he was able to do after the catch. More than half of his yards came after catch on that 50-yarder. He's running down the seam. I didn't think he was even at full gait on that one. And he, as a vertical player, as a field stretcher, he's not going to be what Darren Waller in his prime was. He's just not that kind of player. But you get him in the open field, he is a monster. And I do think that's what separates, you know, we talked about him as sort of proto George Kittle. George Kittle is a more explosive athlete than Tucker Kraft. Is more threatening vertical down the field. But when Tucker Kraft is running the seam and you get him on that seam shot against, whether it's single high or cover 2, because I think they got him both ways in this game. He is a menace to bring down. And we saw him against the safety in the flat. Just a little dump off. It should be a 4-yard gain. It's a first down. He averaged almost 10 yards per play after the catch last year. Per reception, he averaged 9.6 yards after the catch last year. Every time you throw it to him, he's a first down. Having that kind of player makes it easy to go touchdown to check down. How many times in this game did Jordan Love want to throw the ball 50 yards down the field? Okay, it's not there. Let me find Tucker Kraft. When that's your outlet, your offense can be awesome. And I know that that's going to create some volatility because you want to play touchdown to check down. And if Tucker Kraft is not your check down, then it's Chris Brooks or it's, John Fitzpatrick or Luke Musgrave. You don't have the same sort of upside there. But they're also on early downs. Okay, play action, center of the field shot play. Get Tucker Kraft the ball in space. The Commanders vacate a zone. They leave Tucker Kraft wide open up the seam. He's going to go 50 yards against anybody. And there are going to be safeties around the league that are just in the open field. He's just going to sun them. We've seen him do that. Remember the Rams game? last year, 2 touchdowns in that game. They caught him on a crossing route. He's off to the races. He didn't look like he was moving that fast in this game. I'm not sure quite why that was. It looked like he was kind of just trotting. I think he expected guys to be closer to him than they were. But if he's going to create explosives in addition to some of this underneath work, then we do need to start having conversations about where he belongs in the hierarchy of tight ends in the NFL. Like George Kittle right now, I think is in a universe by himself. But some of these guys, aging out, not the same players that they used to be. Mark Andrews used to be one of the best in the game. Travis Kelce used to be one of the best in the game. Not anymore. You've got Brock Bowers coming in. But in the NFC, other than Kittle, who's a better tight end? Who's better? Like, I think right now he's past TJ Hawkinson. Definitely past Cole Kmet. I think he's a better player than Sam Laporta because he blocks. He can do all the stuff in the passing game that Sam Laporta can do, but he blocks. And you don't have to scheme up anything for him. It can just be a little outlet, and then he's gone. And maybe not gone, but it's 10 yards, it's 12 yards, it's 15 yards. He can do all the dirty work and create vertically. Remember, he was a high school running back. It's just another element that this offense brings you. So you want to hit all the big plays. And by the way, I know that it's not going to be reflected necessarily in the efficiency stats for Jordan Love, but I love the aggressiveness built into this offense. All they wanted to do the last 2 weeks was take their shots. Jordan Love, back foot, ball out. Their ADOT, his average depth of target has been insane. Insane. At one point, well into the second half, he had an average depth of target over 14. That's insanity. You're not supposed to have an average depth of target over 14 in a game. That's crazy. But they're just going to keep firing. And it's layups and threes. Okay? But it's almost like layups and threes if the threes are worth 4. Because it really is that to create explosive plays, it really is that much more valuable. And so that makes Tucker Kraft an even bigger asset to this offense because he's the layup. He's the guy that can just dribble drive and get you a bucket. Just get to the rim whenever he wants. And, it's not that they're running stuff for him on 3rd and 6, 3rd and 8. It's, okay, here's the concept. If it's not there, Jordan, get outside the pocket and create. And I didn't think Jordan Love had a great game overall. I thought this was about a B game for him. And yet, 19 of 31 for 292, averaged 9.4 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns, a 114 passer rating. And it was a B performance. Left yards on the field. Like that's how good this offense can be. And Tucker Kraft is such a big reason why. Now, I don't know why they had Fitzpatrick out there in the first half and then started using Musgrave in the second half. I didn't understand why Matthew Golden, like Savion Williams got reps before Matthew Golden did. I don't quite understand what's going on there. I do think all this stuff is going to shake itself out over time. I think there's still, this is like boxing. For the Packers, you're going to go the full distance here because you got to play, 18 weeks. But you're still figuring out your team. It's not just about the opponent. Okay, how's the opponent playing me? It's, okay, what can I do? What can I get away with? How close can I get? If I step here, if I try and cut him off here, what is he going to do? If I start attacking the body, what is he going to do? How is my jab landing? And how does that set up everything else that I'm trying to do? So back to my first point. This is still the Packers feeling out process, and they just dominated 2 playoff teams, 2 of the best teams in the NFC. Dominated them. This was, don't get it twisted. This was an ass kicking. And you know who is the leader of the ass-kicking brigade? Oh, man. Come on. I had it. It was going to be a bar, too. I don't even know if I want to go back to it. I really don't. I really... You know who the leader of the ass-kicking brigade... we got to leave it. We got to leave it. You know what I'm trying to say. It was Tucker Kraft. It was Tucker Kraft. It's late here, guys. Come on. It's been a long week. And he levels up this offense. And he makes it so Jordan Love doesn't have to be perfect on all those deep throws. And he wasn't. But if you can hit those seam shots to Tucker Kraft, and then he can get you 30 extra yards. If you can dump the ball off to Kraft 3 yards from the line of scrimmage, and he can get you 7 more. That makes this offense so much harder to defend, because now you're so worried about everything vertical, and they have so many guys that can get you vertical. We even talked about Jaden Reed, who it looked bad. It looked like a collarbone to me. That would be brutal if he has to miss 2 months. But guess what? Now the hierarchy starts to shake out a little bit more. Again, always said, you never really have too many guys. Injuries, play, it always shakes itself out. It always works itself out somehow, some way. Now, we have to spend some more time. We have to spend some more time talking about this defense. What a performance. Keyshawn Nixon, Javon Bullard, some unsung heroes here really stepped up for the Green Bay Packers. We're going to talk about them next. This episode is brought to you by Mazda's moving the game forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, they move culture, and keep the game moving forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward has to be the Tucker Kraft touchdown. Has to be, because that was the play that ultimately puts the game out of reach. It helped the Packers move forward to 2-0, because from that point on, it's basically over. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Keyshawn Nixon had the game of his life on Thursday night. Javon Bullard had the game of his life on Thursday night, at least in the pros. And this is wild, okay? I had to look this up. Keyshawn Nixon's season high with passes defensed came last year. He had 7. In 2023, when he was the nickel, played fewer snaps, he had 6 passes defensed. On Thursday night, Keyshawn Nixon had 5 passes defensed, 5 pass breakups. He played sticky all night in coverage. He was outstanding all night. This is the kind of offense that this group in particular is built to stop, because they can't protect. And so everything is, the ball's coming out fast all the time. The Packers sat on everything. They sat on everything. And this is absolutely, pointed out in the chat, absolutely the Micah Parsons effect, because they know that ball has to be out or it's a problem. How many times did not just Micah Parsons, but Edge Cooper on a delayed blitz, Quay Walker looping around into the A gap, Devontae Wyatt, Carl Brooks, Lucas Van Ness, Kingsley Enagbare. It was everybody getting into the backfield, making life miserable for Jaden Daniels. And look, the final stat sheet for Jaden Daniels is going to say 24 for 42 for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns, which is like kind of fine. He averaged under 5 yards an attempt. And even with those 2 touchdowns and no interceptions, he had an 85 quarterback rating, took 4 sacks, and there were even more that were close. And by the way, Parsons My pal Marcus Mosher over at Locked On Cowboys has talked about how wild it is that 2 years ago, Micah Parsons could not get a holding call to save his life. There were with all of the nonsense ticky-tack calls that were made in this game against the Packers, to not call some of the ones that Micah Parsons got, where the guy has got a hold of his chest plate. And I'm not talking about the dip moves that, the casuals will say that's a hold and it's not. No. Micah Parsons wins inside and Laramie Tunsil just grabs him by the chest plate and rips him down. And by the way, Micah Parsons keeps fighting through because he's an absolute freak of nature. I think of the play for Javon Bullard, where he reads the receiver screen and he's playing off coverage from the slot, reads it, slides around a block, and goes in and makes a tackle. That's a huge play to create a negative out of a play that's supposed to be easy money. Micah Parsons flushes Jaden Daniels, lined up over right tackle. He just brutalizes Josh Connerly. Jaden Daniels rolls to his left, trying to get something, looks over his shoulder to see Micah Parsons. Javon Bullard flies in and cuts his legs out. Big play. I thought Javon Bullard was flying around, was awesome, and they don't have a fast receiver for the Packers to worry about with Javon Bullard. When he can be that sort of player, the rover, I thought he played well against Deebo Samuel when they were matched up. The Packers were content to say, hey, Deebo, we know you don't have the juice anymore, brother. Someone's got to put their hand on your shoulder and let you know that it's time to get covered by a safety, because Evan Williams had him in single coverage. Javon Bullard had him in single coverage, and the Packers had no problem doing that. Now, again, there are going to be other teams where you just can't do that. But that's why it was great to get Nate Hobbs back in this game. We saw Nate Hobbs one-on-one against Zach Ertz. Love that for the Packers in terms of a matchup maker. Nate Hobbs got called for a weak penalty. Xavier McKinney also got called on Zach Ertz on a weak penalty, where Zach Ertz runs into Xavier McKinney. Now, Xavier McKinney grabs him, but just runs into and is like, it was like a glitch in a video game where you're like run into a wall and your legs and arms keep moving. He's just like running right into Xavier McKinney. It's like, dude, you have to be going somewhere to get a call like that. And then the ball over his head, he never sees it. Like, what are we doing? That's like some of the James Harden stuff where it's like, can you just play basketball? That's what that was. That was nonsense. But there are going to be plenty of games this year where the Packers are it's going to be much tougher against the Vikings, for example, where you got to deal with Jordan Addison in the slot, or you got to deal with Justin Jefferson in the slot, or in a couple of weeks, the Packers are going to have to deal with CeeDee Lamb in the slot. That's a Nate Hobbs game. And I don't know what you do with Javon Bullard, because I want him to be out there. The way he played on Thursday night, I want him to be out there. But it gives you a lot of flexibility with the way you can play these matchups. When you go up against a team like the Browns, are not going to have anybody that you're really worried about. Like Jerry Jeudy's a nice player. Cedric Tillman's a nice player. They don't have anybody to put in the slot to make you want to take Javon Bullard off the field. They've got a really good defense, but the Packers should have no problem matching up with that offense. Now, when the Packers play the Bengals and they put Jamar Chase in the slot, I don't know if I want Javon Bullard doing that. That's what you have Nate Hobbs for. But it'd be nice to still have a role for Javon Bullard. I think that could be where we see some 3 safety looks. Big dime, let's call it. Especially against the Bengals team where the offensive line is not great. And they're not going to play big anyway. They're going to be an 11 personnel bunch. Now, I didn't think this was Quay Walker's best game in the open field tackling. You get dusted by Zach Ertz. That's a problem. But Edge Cooper, man, pressures, late pressures, tackles for loss. There was one drive where he basically ended the drive himself, gets the tackle for loss, and then the pressure on third down to end the drive. I mean, Brandon Snide said it on our Locked On Packers squad show, by the way, which is coming up here shortly, that he can be the best linebacker in the NFL this year. Now, Fred Warner still exists. But if you told me you thought Edgerrin Cooper was the second best linebacker in the NFL today, I would have a hard time telling you that you're wrong. That's how good he is. That's how good he is. So this defense, I'm going to repeat the stat that I gave you at the top. The first time since 1995, the Packers have held their first two opponents in a season under 250 total yards. The first time since 1995. Who was the leader of that defense in 1995? Reggie White. Who is the guy Micah Parsons has been compared to basically every day, every minute of every day since he came to Green Bay? Reggie White. Now, Reggie, for my money, is the best defensive player ever, the best to ever do it. But it is hard to deny the impact Micah Parsons has had on this team. And I've said this on radio. I was just texting a buddy about this. It was hard to know just how good Micah Parsons was until you saw it on the team that you follow closely. Like, I could watch him on the Cowboys and see that guy's really good. And when they play the Packers, man, you really got to have a plan for Micah Parsons or you're in big trouble. But then you see how he affects everybody else, every single play, even when he's not out there somehow. You really then come to understand what a special player he is. And right now, I think the Packers have the best team in the NFL. I think that they have looked the best through 2 weeks. Now they have the advantage of having played a second game. But no one else blew out another contender in week one the way the Packers did. The Ravens started to, and then they blew it. The Eagles struggled with the Cowboys without Micah Parsons. So who are you looking at? Who has played better through two games, even just a game, but through two games versus everyone else's one game? There is not another team that has played better than the Packers so far this season. You don't want to peak too soon, but that 96 team, they came out just beating everybody up. They went through a little swoon in the middle of the season and then closed it off strong and blew through the playoffs and just like annihilated everybody. The Packers could be on their way to that kind of season this year. All right. The Locked On Packers Squad Show. For those of you watching on YouTube, stay here. Jeff Jagosinski, former Packers OC, Brandon Snide, the Locked On Brewers postcast host. He's coming up next with me for the next hour. We will be with you for the next hour. You wired? I'm wired. Let's do this. For everyone else, thanks for being here. The podcast is going to be in your feed. The Squad Show will be in your feed shortly. Follow me on all the social medias. So follow the podcast on all the social medias. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you get podcasts. Subscribe to us on YouTube, where you can watch us live after every game, so you can stay locked on Packers.